Should I do a thumbnail this time? I can't take myself seriously. Ooh, should I do that TikTok thing? Smile at your eyes, which I don't know how that's possible. Oh, that's actually pretty dope. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Isis and this is Isis Says Hi. I like to make a lot of research videos about topics and issues that matter to me, and I vlog sometimes. Please feel free to subscribe. I would love to have you if you are down for that kind of thing. I know politics isn't always people's kind of favorite thing to talk about, but I also think it's just really important to get like a pretty simple education about stuff that's going on in the world. A big thing that I do want to try to remember to put in my videos in the beginning, I will always have my sources linked down below. Today is going to be a long video, but we're going to be talking about food policy programs, just a pretty big summary of it. And we're also going to be talking about some policies that have, well, the stimulus packages, not all of them, but most of them for the most part, that were introduced that are concerning food. And again, links are always going to be listed down below. The first program we're going to start off with is WIC, which actually stands for the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children. This serves a lot of low-income, pregnant, postpartum, and breastfeeding birthing persons. I'm going to call them birthing persons because that's a bit more gender inclusive. I do not believe that's how it's described in a lot of these programs when you go to look at the definitions, so just be aware that I just changed it to birthing persons just to be a bit more inclusive. Helps breastfeeding birthing persons, infants, and children up to age 5 who are at nutritional risk by providing nutritious foods and supplemental diets. Within this program, folks are usually given information on healthy eating, and that includes promoting birthing persons to breastfeed their children and also give them any support they might need, and that includes healthcare, so pediatricians for their children and maybe I was gonna say geriatric, which is not anywhere near that, including like maybe OBGYN, gynecologist for the birthing person, or I guess a regular doctor. I feel like it's a OBGYN. I could be wrong. I'm not good with the medical specializations. Next, we're going to talk about SNAP. So SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as food stamps or SNAP. I did 2 videos on SNAP. I did one on disaster SNAP last week, and then I did one on regular SNAP 2 weeks ago. Feel free to get a little bit more in depth if you want to on the video. I'm just kind of summarizing a lot of these programs and talking about programs that you definitely probably have seen or didn't realize were a part of something else. So SNAP provides monthly benefits to help supplement or aid the food budget of families who need the food, so that way they can purchase healthy food to move towards self-sufficiency, and that only just means financial independence, so not needing any public benefits in any way, and that is their definition, not mine. So I'm gonna reference 2 programs in SNAP that I didn't mention in the past 2 videos. One is the NSLP, and that is the National School Lunch Program, and that provides lunches to public and nonprofit private schools and childcare institutions. So when you go to have lunch, probably provided by the government. The NSLP is usually pretty much in all schools. That's just something that's been implemented for a really long time. But SBP, which is the School Breakfast Program, they provide breakfast to public and nonprofit private schools and childcare institutions as well. That is not as heavily implemented, and so there's a lot of reasons for this. The cost of providing breakfast until they can get reimbursed by the federal government, and getting reimbursed just means getting paid for what you gave out, isn't always feasible to a lot of schools. Like, it isn't always easy to do that. Another thing which I think is a dumb critique is, I mean, it's not a dumb critique, but I feel like it's a terrible reason to use. They wouldn't want the students eating in the classroom classroom, they're like afraid that students will carry the food to classes, and again, they don't want the kids eating in the classroom. I understand the reasoning. Depending on how your school is, there might already be like some pest issues, and so it makes sense in that regard. I just don't think that's a good reason to not have it. In terms of cost, you have to not only give food, you probably have to find money to allow morning buses to come pick up the children so that they can get dropped off to the school and eat breakfast. You might have to now pay extra to the folks who work in the cafeteria to make sure that they're getting paid to do extra work. Next program is the CACFP, and that stands for Child and Adult Care Food Program, and that is another federal program. Pretty much all of these programs are federal, but the states kind of figure out how to distribute it or dole it out to the people who need it. So yeah, so that's a federal program that provides reimbursements for nutritious meals and snacks to children who are eligible for it, and adults as well who are enrolled for care. The CACFP is usually distributed for like after school programs, maybe any child care centers, any daycare homes for those who have disabilities or those who are seniors, children residing in emergency shelters. That's not as crazy popular, it's not as known, but it is something that is like definitely used. And I think if you ever probably received a snack if you were staying after school, most likely it's because of the CACFP. So next is the SFSP, the Summer Food Service Program, and that program reimburses people who operate the program. The purpose of that is to give free meals to children and teens in low-income areas. Issues with this: reimburses program operators, right? Reimbursements from the federal government can always get really tricky depending on the state and how the state does it. It can be really difficult to have funding for these programs knowing that you might not get reimbursed as quickly, and especially if these program operators are not like these big corporations, but they're like nonprofits who already are strapped for cash, or churches who don't mind taking on that service and that duty. Again, strapped for cash a lot of the time, and so that's an issue. Another issue is mobility and access. So a lot of parents might leave their kids at home, and while the kids can just go get the lunch, a lot of parents of course aren't going to be comfortable just sending their kids to go get food for them, like to go get food to eat during the day. As much as it would help them, they're just not comfortable. They don't feel like that's safe, and they don't feel like that's a good idea. Maybe like having a truck and knowing that you have a list of people in a certain block or a certain street or whatever, being able to distribute it to them that way during the summer would be more helpful than them having to go to a central place. Also, another thing is sometimes the places where SFSP would be, it's too far, especially in like a rural community where things are already just really far in a general sense. Next, TFAP, which is the Emergency Food Assistance Program. You rarely ever hear TFAP. You usually hear Emergency Food Assistance Program, and that's gonna be cited in a lot of the policy, wording that I'll get to towards the end of this video. I'm spitting, I am so sorry. The Emergency Food Assistance Program, I think I mentioned it in the SNAP video if I'm not mistaken. That is the program where usually the excess product is taken from farmers and they get paid for it. That food is distributed to soup kitchens and maybe food pantries and food banks to give to other people. And I think I talked about that a little bit as well, about some of the issues that can happen. TFAP requires a lot more documentation, and usually if you're going to a soup kitchen or a food pantry, you usually want to be anonymous. You don't want people to know that you were there and that you're collecting food. So usually there's like only certain places that can get that food. So like one way that they've been able to curtail it is doing it in schools because the documentation is already there. TFAP is great because, you know, you're paying back farmers who have a lot of excess product, and that can be really costly on them. Issues is that there hasn't been enough emphasis in making sure that nonprofits, and that includes soup kitchens, food pantries, food banks, can actually deliver that excess product to other people. Sometimes there's not enough space to store them, or they don't have enough money to store it. Sometimes there's not enough money to get the produce and deliver it. So all the farmers have to do is give away the product. They don't have to deliver that product. And so there's costs there. It's all of these little things where these programs are great and are doing a good service, but there's these little infrastructural or administrative things that make it next to impossible to actually be distributed and done well. The same thing goes for the FDPIR, and that stands for the Food Distribution Program. Indian reservations, indigenous folks in the US, they are given USDA food, and it's distributed to Indian reservations, American Indian reservations, or households that are in certain areas that maybe are near reservations or in Oklahoma. So another infrastructural issue here, it is for the most part not a secret that American Indian kind of governments or tribes and the way that the federal government treats them is terrible. And there's a lot of things that they allow American Indians to handle that they don't get involved with, but then at the same time they are involved. The things that they do handle are really, really bad. I'm hoping that this program is really, really good, but I don't expect it to be great because I am aware of the history of how the federal government treats American Indians, and I don't expect anything stellar, which makes me really upset. And there's the CSFP, and that's the Commodity Supplemental Food Program. I like to affectionately call them senior boxes, and essentially they make sure that, I think it's each month or every 3 months, seniors who are low income are able to get big thing of food every month, and that is what the commodity part comes from. They say nutritious. I don't think so. If you see the boxes and what's in them, sometimes I can get that, but a lot of the time, no. One of my biggest issues with CSFP is they give them so much, which is amazing in concept, but you're giving seniors heavy things to carry. And a lot of seniors can get around, that's amazing, but not all of them can. And I always feel terrible having to give them this incredibly heavy box that they now have to maybe carry on the bus or walk all the way back to their houses. A lot of the time they are able to bring carts that they have, and so they just put it all in the cart. And usually there's always a really nice person, bus driver, if they go on the bus, who helps them pick it up and take it down. Sometimes they also have family who have a car, and so the family will just help them, give them a ride for the senior box and drive them back to their house. I always feel bad. I couldn't imagine if my grandma was in this program giving her this heavy box and being good luck. Moving on. There's 3 more programs. So food safety, that's a food program, making sure your food's not, bad and can be given to you. The special milk program, I would explain why literally with all of our lunches, you only got milk. You can thank the special milk program. That's what I got from the definition. And then the seniors farmers market nutrition program, and that's SFMNP. You gotta love it. I remember when I really was deep in these food policy programs, I would be hearing these acronyms all the time. I would hear CACFP, CSFP, TFAP. My brain would have to remember that, oh, this is what it stands for, this is what it means, this is da-da-da, this is da-da-da. It's ridiculous. It's one of the biggest frustrations for me when we're talking about food policy. There's so much information, so many little nitpicky things that have to be remembered and known, off the back of your head. And then 2, there's so many programs, and a lot of the time you can very easily combine them. CSFP and probably TFAP, I'm doing the same thing, and CACFP, those could probably all be combined, right? You could just make sure that any excess farmers product is just able to get distributed. Nobody would have to fill out 10 million forms. It could just be under one program, right? And it would get distributed to seniors, children, whoever, and that would be it. The last one is the Seniors Farmers Market Nutrition Program, which is SFMNP. That's just a program where seniors are provided with a lot of locally grown fruit, vegetables, honey, and herbs. Helps with making sure that there's farmers markets that are available and accessible to a lot of seniors. Hopefully I explained that well, and if not, you can always just, rewind, take it all in. It's a lot of information and it's a lot of programs, but they all do help. I just wish they were combined, because a lot of them can just be combined into one program. So next, we're going to talk about how some of these food programs are operating during the Rona. Miss Rona. There's a lot. Again, I think I mentioned it a little bit in the SNAP video, but states can sometimes get waivers or flexibilities to allow them to be able to operate better. So since March, states have been using flexibilities to provide emergency benefit supplements, maintain benefits to households with children that aren't going to school, meaning that they're probably missing meals, and ease a lot of the program administration during the pandemic. And program administration can mean getting people processed to get SNAP. It can mean holding interviews for SNAP, having people be recertified for SNAP, and that certification just means that their income is updated with the Department of Health and Human Services on the state level. It can mean all of that. So because they were able to get those flexibilities, SNAP participation increased way more because they were able to process people quicker, and it also meant that more people were getting fed, which is always what you want. Next, there was a government funding bill that was enacted in October. The government funding bill that was enacted in October allows states to extend many of the flexibilities without requesting USDA approval. Before the government funding bill was enacted, they had to request the USDA's approval, and the USDA was not really responding well or rejecting it. So they either took too long to respond, didn't allow all of the states to get flexibility, or they just straight out rejected them, which we're in a pandemic, right? So that's not good that you're being selective in who gets flexibility and who doesn't, because it's a global pandemic. That bill allowed the states to do a lot of waiving and just be flexible in a general sense without having to wait on the USDA to approve it. So that meant that the states could provide more SNAP to people and wouldn't have to wait on the USDA. And then it also temporarily suspended the 3-month time limit on benefits for unemployed adults who were under the age 50 without children in their home. And we call them ABODs. And the Trump administration decided to enact that ABODs would only be able to receive SNAP benefits for 3 months, and then they couldn't reapply for SNAP. I believe it was either 24 or 36 months, which pretty much equals 3 years without getting any SNAP. The dumbest thing in the world. It was literally the worst. This isn't the only thing that the USDA under the Trump administration has done. That's just one of them. It also included a little boost of emergency supplementary benefits and school meal replacement benefits, and that would be called PEBT. And so PEBT allowed states to submit requests to provide meal replacement benefits through SNAP. And so all that means is that students who didn't go to school or the school was closed for more than 5 days, the money that would have probably gone towards feeding them if they were in school to just being put on an EBT card instead. I've heard 2 different things. They have extended that to September 2021. There's a lot of programs where they either extended it to June of this year or September of this year. I don't believe that we'll be done with this by September. But now they've changed it so that parents who have children who are either virtual or not virtual are able to still receive those PEBT benefits regardless. Under the Families First Act, there were other things, so extending the certification period, and that just means that those who receive SNAP don't have to worry about having to update any of their information during that time. And it also means that those who process these applications for SNAP can be able to process other applications faster. Another is waiving other requirements like the application interview, so that can be done on the phone compared to in person. A lot of the time though, usually it's done through phone anyways, so it's just nice that it's a little bit more enforced, I guess. 1 second, my battery's gonna die. I feel like I forgot to say I'm gonna be in a Snuggie because I'm cold. Next, the USDA also made the ability to do an online purchasing program for SNAP recipients more possible. This was included in the Farm Bill in 2014. And as a quick recap, the Farm Bill is usually just an omnibus, and an omnibus is just a bill that has 10 million other little policy things included in it that are very much unrelated to the main purpose of the bill. The Farm Bill is just a bill that I think happens every 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. It's done every couple years. it usually concerns the food programs that exist, and it usually is around funding and maybe making sure to allow certain program changes. So the Farm Bill is where the EBT card was introduced, and then also the change from food stamps to SNAP was also introduced. And in the 2014 Farm Bill, an online purchasing program was supposed to be happening. It was a pilot program, so an introductory program, just seeing if it's something that possibly could be put in just as a general thing, but few states did it at the time. Now it's pretty much nationwide because of the pandemic, perpendicular. Now it's kind of being enforced more often. It is something that you can get in all 50 states. Walmart or Amazon are the ones that are pretty much in all 50 states, but some states have included Aldi, some states have included ShopRite. So I'm really happy to see that Aldi, ShopRite, and Fresh Grocer are included as places you can purchase on as well. I'm gonna leave a description down below so you can look and see in your state if what stores are included in the online purchasing, and that also definitely will explain more about how you can use your SNAP benefits if you have them to get some of this product. So because it wasn't put in the Families First Act, it'll always be there. It won't change, which is really great. My hope is that they can be able to include more stores, but I'm really happy that now it's being implemented throughout all of the states. Now we're going to talk about some of the COVID packages. Well, we're going to talk about the latest one that just came out, I think in December, if I'm not mistaken, finally. Again, this is more centered on food, so it's not going to be centered on all parts of the package. And we're also going to talk about Biden and some of his food-centered plans. There are some numbers that I'm going to include in here. $13 billion for agricultural production as well as aid, and then this also includes direct payments to farmers and protections for food and agriculture workers, which is amazing, and specific support for those who are smaller farmers and not huge farmers. Also establishes a loan calculation for farmers as well, so they can get the payment protection plan, the PPP loan, and allows farm credit system institutions to be eligible to distribute those loans, which is also great. So making these loans accessible to farmers. I wonder if it is going to end up being the same thing as the last PPP. A lot of pretty much marginalized communities really didn't have access to these loans. So I'm hoping there was an emphasis on smaller farmers in the bill. So I'm hoping that also includes Black and brown small farmers or just small farmers in a general sense. $5 million was given for technical support to the USDA to expand the SNAP program online. Also is included for farmers markets, supporting mobile payment technologies to accept EBT. So a lot of places don't accept EBT. They can't do the online purchasing for EBT because they don't have the software and the tech for it. The $5 million is just to make sure that SNAP can actually be used online in a general sense. $614 million was given to Puerto Rico and the American Samoa for nutrition assistance. As I said in the SNAP video, they get block grants, so they just are given a whole bunch of money, told what it's for, and essentially are told good luck. And so that's all they have until they get another block grant. And a lot of the time, it usually runs out. So it's nice that they're giving them more money, but again, I wish they didn't get block grants. I just don't think that makes sense. And then $14 million is available to the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. I didn't even know we had another one. Good Lord. I don't know why we have U.S. territories. It increases the monthly SNAP benefit level by 15% through June 30th, 2021, but President Biden wants to extend that to September 2021, excluding the federal pandemic unemployment compensation, so PUA or PUC, whatever they call it. They make sure that it's not counted in household income for SNAP. Extends SNAP eligibility to college students who are eligible for a federal or state work-study program or has an expected family contribution of 0. So usually when you're filling out for financial aid, you have to put in your family contribution. Next, they're investing $400 million In the Emergency Food Assistance Program through September 30th, 2021, Emergency Food Assistance Program is TFAP, and that allows for 20% of the funds to be used for commodity distribution. That's the thing that I was talking about before, and that there's not enough money being given to be able to deliver the product, only really to pay the farmers for the product, which is great because they should get paid, but there needs to be more funding to be able to distribute that product. States will issue EBT benefits to children under the age of 6 who live in households that receive SNAP. I'm realizing now that PEBT was only extended to children who are in school, but not children who might not be in school. So maybe like they're in kindergarten or pre-K and not necessarily fall under regular school age. So that is being extended now to them as well, to parents of those children as well, which is great. It's also extended to those who are in schools or childcare facilities that are closed or have reduced hours without having to verify that they're enrolled in school. So essentially all that means is if your child is under the age of 6, as long as they're under the age of 6, and as long as you're already receiving SNAP, you're eligible. You do not need to prove anything to the government. Then there's CACFP, which is the Child and Adult Care Food Program. Gave them more money to continue serving children and families. And they're just giving as much funding that's needed for that program. Oh, is there something on my nose? Oh no, it's just my glasses. Also, if they are slanted again, I am so sorry. I hope you're getting educated as much as I hope I'm explaining things well. There's also a requirement for the department, the USDA, to establish a task force on food delivery models in the WIC program so that participants have access to curbside pickup and other ways of getting food. So there needs to be a task force on food delivery on making sure that that can work. Provides $175 million in emergency funding for Older Americans Act nutrition programs. And that includes $7 million for tribal nutrition programs. Don't you love talking about food programs? I do. I didn't realize how nuts this sounds to anybody. All my friends who hear me vent about this, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how crazy this sounds. Anyways, this is a weird number, but I decided to include it. Provides $11.1875 billion to the Office of the Secretary to remain available until it runs out. Prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID by providing support to farmers, growers, and processors. Next, the bill provides $75 million to the Farm Bill's Farming Opportunities Training and Outreach Program, so adding more to that, to a previous Farm Bill program to support farming. It usually supports groups who are providing beginning, socially disadvantaged, and veteran farmers and ranchers some financial and marketing advice and technical assistance, including help in accessing federal and state assistance programs. $20 million annually to the Agricultural Research Service to address gaps in nutrition research by studying the connection between agriculture production and human nutrition and health. And then it also provides $400 million to pay for milk to be processed into dairy products and donated to nonprofit food entities. And then under that program, the nonprofits and the person who processes the dairy will have to develop a plan for donation and distribution, and the USDA reimburses the processor for the cost of processing the dairy. I wish they talked about reimbursement for the distribution. So essentially TFAP, but not. I'm assuming the reason that they made this separate is because if you wanted to change how the TFAP program works, you would probably have to put it in a farm bill. I'm going to include President Biden's proposed plan and what he wants to do, like his version of the stimulus package. And then I'm also going to include some of the executive orders that he has. President Biden put out an executive order to improve 2 features of COVID-related federal relief efforts that were already in place. First one, increased food assistance benefits that were provided through the new PEBT program. It just increased it again to the 15%. He either increased it by 15% or he added 15% from one of the previous stimulus packages. Second, it seeks to improve emergency SNAP benefits authorized under the March 2020 Families First Act, which was the first stimulus package. So they reach households with the most trouble affording an adequate diet. The second feature is just improving the way that emergency SNAP is distributed. Lastly, the executive order directs the Agriculture Department to move quickly on a provision of the 2018 Farm Bill that requires a reevaluation of SNAP benefit levels. So essentially, the last part of the executive order is just Biden directing the USDA to look at the SNAP benefit levels and really asking if it actually is enough to help somebody from month to month. And then next, under his relief plan, he wants to extend that 15% increase in SNAP benefits to September. He wants it to be indicated way past that if it's needed. It might be that the hard stop is September 2021, but if it's not needed earlier than that, they probably will stop it. But if he is also giving an executive order that the Agriculture Department look at maybe increasing the SNAP benefit levels, that 15% might just be included permanently. Yes, 15% maybe hard stop September 2021 for the package, but as a whole, the USDA could just have that 15% be there permanently if they feel like the 15% makes sense in their research. So that was smart. That's smart, Biden. I see you. I see you. Next, he included a $4 billion investment to address the food needs in the territories, which is amazing because they need way more money, to ensure that the WIC program reaches more eligible low-income birthing persons, infants, and children as well. So giving more access to the WIC program and then also adding more money to the food programs in the territories. He also would partner with restaurants to provide food to needy Americans and jobs to laid off restaurant workers. Food waste is a really big issue. I would say hotels and restaurants are probably the biggest agents or people who contribute the most to food waste. There is like a bill that kind of addresses it, but it's really, really broad. It's not very specific and it needs to be more specific. And so being able to partner with them to figure out how to best deal with that extra food would be really, really helpful. So I'm actually really excited to see what that looks like. Hopefully that all made sense. I know I definitely talked for a little bit. I'm sorry. Thank you for watching. I will see you next week. It's Black History Month next week, so I'm excited to talk more about Black people. And I will see you I'll see you next week, whenever I post. Bye!